Parshas Chukas. Page 838. Okay, this is one of the more, I'll tell you what it does have in common, what these parshas do have in common. Which did you say, Korah, Chukas, and Balak? Yeah, what they do have in common is that each one has something, there's very bizarre things that happen. Bizarre laws, bizarre things that happen. Korah, Chukas, and Balak. Okay, 838. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron lemor. Hashem speaks to Moshe Aaron. Zos Chukas HaTorah, this is the law of the Torah. Asher tziva Hashem lemor. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yichlo elecha Parah-Dox. Take a red cow, tamima, perfectly unblemished. Asher ein bo mum, it has no blemish. Asher lo ala ol, it's had no yoke on it. And you take this cow, nesatem losa l'Elazar HaKohen, page 838. And he takes it outside the camp, and he takes this cow and he slaughters it. What do you do with that? He sprinkles the blood towards the Oil Moed from this red cow that he shechted and burnt. And then the Torah goes on to describe what they do with it. They burn the cow, they mix the ashes with water, and anybody who becomes tameh by coming into contact with a dead body or something that communicates a grave or being in a room with a dead body. So the only way to get purified is with the ashes of the Parah-Dox being sprinkled on it. That's the law of the Torah. Now, the first question that we have to deal with, there are quite a few questions here. The first question is, why does the Torah introduce this? Why does the Torah introduce it? Zos Chukas HaTorah, this is the law of the Torah. And then go on to start talking about the Parah-Dox. Why is it called, this is the law of the Torah? Yeah, this is the decree of the Torah. So that's question number one. Question number two, why a red cow? Why a red cow of all things? I mean, it's just the most, whenever they want to talk about a bizarre mitzvah, this is the one. A red cow, somebody becomes ritually impure, so you take a red cow, burn it up, find a red cow that is perfectly red, without blemish, without a yoke, burn it up, mix it with the ashes with water, and then sprinkle it on the guy. Okay, that'll take care of the problem. What's going on? In order to really understand this, take a look at Pasuk Tes Zayin for a second. We're going to see a Rashi on Pasuk Tes Zayin on page 840. So Rashi brings down here oh no, it's a little bit later, sorry. Brings out Rabbi Moshe Hadarshan. Where is it? I just looked at it yesterday. Where is it? No. 1 second. I know I'm not crazy. I mean, maybe. Here. It's on 842, sorry. It's count down 7 lines. If you find it, please show the person next to you. 7 lines, right column of Rashi. And Rashi brings it down over. It really could have been at the beginning of the parsha. But anyway, let's see the Rashi. This is a fundamental explanation here. Umedrash Agoda. You see that? If you please show it to the person next to you. Umedrash Agoda hetakti miyasodo shobri Moshe Hadarshan. Rashi says, you have a medrash that I've taken from the commentary of Rabbi Moshe Hadarshan. V'yichlo elecha mishelahem. They should take for you a red cow. That means it should belong to the Jewish people. Why? What's the emphasis? Kishem shehem parku nizmei zav la'egel mishelahem. Just as they took off the golden earrings from their ears to make the golden calf, kach yaviu zula kapara misham. They're going to bring this cow as an atonement. So right away we have a connection between the red cow and the golden calf. And there is a natural connection because a cow and a calf are related. The cow is the mother of the calf. Parah-Duma, says Rashi, a red cow. Everybody inside. Mashal leben shifcha, the son of a maidservant, shetinef paltlin. The son of a maidservant was in front of the king and he did something extremely socially unacceptable on the floor. Amru, so they said, now who's supposed to clean that up? Tavo imo, the mother should come, v'tekanei achatzoah, she's got to wipe up the excrement on the floor. Your baby did it, lady, go ahead, get it taken care of. Kach tavo para, the cow should come along, utechaper al ha'egel, and the cow should atone for the calf. Who's the calf, the golden calf, which did something, it did something, it left a spiritual excrement. Who's supposed to clean that up? The mother. Who's the mother? Is the red cow. Aduma, why is it red? Al shem im yadimu katola, shachet koroyadam. Sin is always associated with the red. Sin is always associated with red. The red light district, blood which only happened after the original sin of Adam Harishon. There would have been no bleeding. Nobody would have ever gotten hurt. There would be no bleeding in the world, except for the sin of Adam Harishon. After his sin, and that's why the blood comes along. Temima al shem Yisrael shahayu temimim. It's got to be a perfect cow. The Jewish people were perfect at Har Sinai. V'nasu bo balei mum, and they had blemish. They became blemished, spiritually blemished. Tovoza v'techaper aleim v'yachzu l'timumusam. Lo ola aleim ol, the yoke cannot go up on the cow. What's that got to do with the Jewish people? Kishem sheparku mileim ol yitmashu. The Jewish people threw off the yoke of heaven at the golden calf. So right off the bat, Rashi comes along, and Rashi tells us, what is this red cow all about? The red cow is all about an atonement for the golden calf. And the connection is very tight. You have the red cow, the mother, sin, the golden calf, which is, by the way, the Gemara says there are 7 levels of gold. There are 7 different gradings of gold, and the highest level of gold was called red gold. The golden calf was made out of red gold. I don't think red gold is literally red, but it's got the strongest luster of all the gold, and it's called red gold. There's something called white gold. There's red gold, there's white gold, there are different grades. The highest level gold is called red gold. And therefore you have the red cow, which is going to atone for the golden calf. Okay, so we understand the red cow. If that's the case, why is it that this is the mitzvah that Shlomo HaMelech said, Amarti echkema v'hi rechoka mimeni. Shlomo HaMelech said I was wise, and yet I see I'm far away. Amarti echkema v'hi rechoka mimeni. I've said I was wise, I see wisdom is far from me. Why? Because Shlomo HaMelech said there's one mitzvah I don't understand. Which mitzvah? The Parah-Duma. Why don't you understand? Rashi tells us what it is. Ramoshe Adarshan. What don't you understand about it? So the Mefarshim say there's one aspect which he didn't understand. In other words, yeah, there's a connection. Yeah, I hear the connection. There's something about the red cow that doesn't make sense. Or was not understood by Shlomo HaMelech, which is what?
Pure makes it pure.
Right. Somebody who's pure, somebody who's impure becomes pure. Somebody who's pure, who's involved in the process of the red cow, they become tameh. For those who are pure, it becomes impure. Those who are impure, it becomes pure. And Shlomo said that paradox, or Parah-Dox, because of the Parah-Duma. What's up, Docs? The paradox of the Parah-Duma is that those who are pure become impure, and those who are impure become pure. And Shlomo HaMelech said, Amarti, it's a pasuk in Mishlei, Amarti echkama, I said I would be wise, v'hi rechoka mimeni, yet I'm distant from wisdom. To that, the commentaries ask, well, there's one mitzvah, there's 613 mitzvahs, and he figured out he got all of them, except one detail of one mitzvah, and then Shlomo says, I'm distant from wisdom? You're pretty, that's pretty good. 612 out of 613 is not bad, and there's only one aspect, and Shlomo says, since I don't understand this one aspect of it, I feel I'm distant from wisdom. I'm distant. You're distant? The way you're saying things sounds pretty close to me. It's not like you're too distant. So why does Shlomo say, Amarti echkama, I'm you're far from it? Not that far. So why does it say echkama rechoka mimeni? Here's the question. So there are two approaches here. There's one approach that says, well, that tells you the depth of every mitzvah. That tells you how deep a mitzvah is. You could miss in one mitzvah, since there's infinite depth, and you haven't penetrated the depth of the infinite wisdom, so that you could be very, very far away. You could be very, very far away. So, yeah, you've nailed 200, 612 of them. But if you're not clear on 613, means you could be infinitely distant from it. That's still a long way to go. That's still a long way to go. You could have traveled a long way to get to California, but if you're still you could have driven across most of the country and you're still only in Denver, you're still pretty far away. It doesn't matter what you've covered. It matters how far are you. Number one. Number two, Shlomo HaMelech is concerned, well, if I didn't understand this one, maybe the other ones I also came up short. It's like a boss who used to walk into the office when he'd see something out of place. He'd say, well, if this isn't right, what else isn't right? How'd you like to work for a boss like that? If this is out of place, what else is out of place? He'd see some file or something that was laid in the wrong area and put in the wrong cabinet. Well, why is this here? Well, sorry, somebody made a mistake. Well, if this isn't right, so what else isn't right? So Shlomo HaMelech is teaching you, the depth of Torah is. Depth of Torah is infinite over here. So the Parah-Dox, yeah, we understand the symbolism of it. The symbolism is that the Parah-Dox has to do with why specifically death? Because the golden calf brought death back to the world. The Jewish people before at Har Sinai, there would have been no more death, or at least no more death through the angel of death. There was what, according to some, there would be misas neshika, death with a kiss. The Death Eaters, right? Death with a kiss. But that death with a kiss would have left no impurity. There would have been no impurity in the world. Thank you, Saul. There would have been no impurity in the world. And therefore, what brought back impurity, what brought back the impurity of death was the golden calf. So the Parah-Dox, when somebody becomes, by the way, nowadays, we're all tamei meis. We're all considered to have come into contact with a dead body at some point, and we have no way of getting out of it. There's no way to get out of it. You could go into a mikveh and you could dip 613 times. Won't help you. Until and unless a person is sprinkled with the ashes of the Parah-Dox, there's no way to get out of that, no way to get out of being tamei meis.
So why is a Kohen still not going to a cemetery?
Because a Kohen is tamei, and there's a prohibition. Again, we spoke about this when we spoke about the Tumah of Kohanim. There are two things. There is the prohibition and there is the consequence. The prohibition is to come into contact with the dead body. That's a prohibition every time he does it. There happens to be a consequence, or there's a result. The result is he becomes tamei. So he's still tamei. It doesn't matter. I told you, it's like a person, you're not allowed to eat pork. If a person eats pork the first time, we don't say, well, he became porculated, and now he can continue eating pork. Each time it's a prohibition. Each time it's a prohibition. For a Kohen to come into contact with a dead body, he's not allowed to come into contact with a dead body ever. He become tamei. Okay, one time he became tamei. It doesn't mean he can continue becoming tamei. Each time's a prohibition. Here, the Torah says it. Now, what's interesting here is it says there's a medrash that says, you're not allowed to put a yoke on the Parah-Dox. It can't have a yoke. It's got to be, and it can't have even two black hairs. That's quite an inspection process. Can you imagine the guys are inspecting? Hey, I think we got a red cow over here. So they go down to the farm, and a couple of guys go down there and they're inspecting it. So far, so good. So far, so good. That's probably a long inspection. And then, like the last, Zalmi, I think I might have one over here. Oh no, I got one over here. Oh, there it goes. 4 hours of inspection down the drain because two black hairs. So what's that?
One black hair?
One yes, two no. That's what the halacha says.
Tweezers? No?
And nothing but no. Not only that, it's not allowed to have had a yoke on it. So there's actually a medrash that says that there was a goy who had a Parah-Dox born. So the Jews, they came over they offered him some money. They offered him like 3 zuz, 3 gold pieces. So he picked up that they're pretty interested in this cow. So he said no. They said 5. He said no, 10. So he realized that he's really got them. He said, okay, he drove up the price to 1,000 zuz. And they wanted this cow. Okay. So they go home, to get the money, and in the meantime, he says to his friend, now I'm going to have a good time at the expense of these Jews. They're coming tomorrow, watch this. I know that this cow's not supposed to have a yoke on it. I'm going to put a yoke on it, and there'll be yoke on you, right? The yoke's on you. And he puts the yoke on the car. Did you get that? Yoke on you? Yeah, that was diabolically clever. So he puts a yoke on the cow, and he leaves it in the, what's that? You know what a cow is? When a cow plows, they put a yoke on it. They put, what's it called? Shlomo, you must have seen. When they
Yeah, we would call it a yoke too. It's a...
What, a leather strap or something that goes across the neck? Wood, or whatever it is. You strap it to the cow. A Parah-Dox is not allowed to have had one of those on it at all. Has to be fresh. Okay, so he puts the yoke on the cow and leaves it in the barn. The next day the Jews come and he says, okay, let's have the money. Here's the cow. And he takes off the yoke. And they say, well, just 1 second, because there are 2 hairs on the back of the neck, which are a sign. There are 2 signs in the Parah-Dox that it's never had a yoke. One of them is that there are these 2 hairs that in the back of the neck that stand upright, but if it has a yoke, they automatically fall down. And the other is that his eyes of the cow are straight, but if he had a yoke, the eyes go kind of out of line with each other because he's been looking back at the yoke. And so they inspect the cow, and they see that these 2 hairs are flat, and then they see that the eyes are out of line with each other. They say, sorry, yeah, you lose. And they turn around and they left. The guy went home and he hung himself. That's what the Medrash says. That was the happy ending. And then it says, the pasuk, Kein yovdu kol oivecha Hashem, may all of your enemies perish. That's what the Medrash says. Now, there's another story with a guy, and his name is Dama ben Nesina. And Dama ben Nesina was the guy who came to him. The Gemara in Kedushin says they came to him and they said they want to buy the stones for the Choshen, the chest plate for the Kohen Gadol, and they were missing a couple of gems. So they found out that he's got the gems. So he went to get the key to the safe where they had the box or where he had the king or whatever. And his father was sleeping. And they offered him 600,000 gold pieces. According to one opinion, 800,000 gold pieces. I could get used to that. And they offered him 600,000 gold pieces. And then Dama ben Nesina said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to wake up my father. The next year, what's that? A good boy, right? We'll see. The next year, he had a red cow born in his flock. And they came to him and they said, we want the red cow. He said, I know that whatever I charge you, you'll pay, but I also realize that this is a reward for having honored my father last year, and therefore I will only charge you the low price of the 600,000 gold pieces that I forfeited last year. That's what the Gemara says. The Mefarshim ask the following question, which is, why was he rewarded with the red cow? I mean, wouldn't it have been logical the next year they should lose a couple more gems, and then he should have the gems, and his father isn't taking a nap on the box with the gems where he has to wake him up. That would have been the most efficient way of getting around this. Why is the reward for what he did? Thank you for turning on the air conditioning, by the way. I feel like a new person. Why is there, not that you're supposed to say, no, the old person was fine. We don't want a new one. But okay, we'll leave that go. You missed your chance. It's like a guy says, this is not my day. Today is not my day. Well, it'd be very ridiculous to think that it is because there are only 365 to go around and there are 8 billion people on the planet. Why should it be your day? You know, the odds are against you. Okay, we'll leave that for a different time. So why does he get the red cow specifically? Why is that his reward? Anybody got an idea? Why does Dama ben Nesina get rewarded with a Parah-Dox? Hashem has a lot of ways that he could have gotten him $600,000. He could have bought a lottery ticket. He could have had the gemstones. He could have had an old uncle who died. There could have been, what's that? Mitzvah for who?
For him and the Jews.
For him and the Jews. In other words, like this. Dama ben Nesina created a spiritual prosecution against the Jewish people. Here you have a non-Jew who's not even obligated to the mitzvah, and he's willing to forfeit 600,000 gold pieces. But which mitzvah did he do it for? He did it for the mitzvah of honoring parents, which is what we call sichli. Sichli means it's intuitive. It's everybody does that. In many societies, you honor the elders. That's just something that you do, even by the non-Jews, even if it's not officially one of the 7 Noachide laws. You honor your parents. It's something logical to honor the parents. The Jewish people, now there's a finger pointing at them. What would you do? You're going to see. He's like, I'll see your kibbud avayim, and I'll raise you one red cow. Will you have to now exceed him? You have obligations, the Jewish people. The way you exceed him is he was willing to do it for a logical mitzvah. Are you willing to do it for something that doesn't make any sense to a human mind? To buy a red cow. And therefore they have to go above and beyond. And that's why it's specifically it's a test for the Jewish people. Are you willing to spend the money on something which is less logical? So I told you, by the way, when we spoke about kibbud avayim, I always use this example. Imagine you're home and there's a knock on your door. There's a guy dressed in a 3-piece suit and he's frantic and he says, listen, I'm the CEO of a major corporation. I'm on my way downtown right now to settle a deal with a bunch of CEOs. There are billions of dollars on the line. My limousine just broke down in front of your house. If you sell me the car, the keys to your 14-year-old Chevy, in the next minute, I'll pay you $600,000 for it. I got to get that money. Doesn't mean anything to me. You got 1 minute, otherwise I go to the neighbor. So you're all excited, and you go running upstairs to get the key to the car, but your father's sleeping. It's under his pillow. So you come down and say to the guy, sorry, but Dad's sleeping. I'm not going to wake him up. So he goes over to the neighbor, pays the neighbor $600,000, drives off with their old car. Then your father wakes up 45 minutes later. Chaim, anything happened while I was sleeping? Oh, yeah, well, just some guy made an offer on a car. Which one? The Chevy. How much? A lot. How much? Cash. How much? $600,000. And? Dad, Tati, you think I didn't learn anything in yeshiva? I wasn't going to wake you up. I don't know any of your fathers. But all I can tell you is that it's a good thing that right after that mitzvah of honoring parents, it says don't murder.
That goes both ways.
Could you imagine? Well, wake up. Gentlemen, I got news for you. If you're ever in that situation, wake up your father violently if you must. Because your father would want to wake up. Yes. Maybe Dama ben Nesina didn't. His father, Gemara says, was crazy. If his mother, the question becomes, why is the Gemara telling us that? Honestly, let me ask you a question. What do you think your father would want? What do you think your father would want? To wake him up violently. Yes, absolutely.
So that justifies going against?
It's not going against. We have to figure out what's the Torah telling us. Because we have to do the right thing. The right thing is wake your father up. So why is the Gemara telling us the story? The Gemara tells the story to show you what extent you got to go to honor your father. Honor my father. My goodness, my father for a RC cap celebrated when he wanted 10 cents under the cap. Believe me, he'd want to be woken up. Okay. Then the Gemara says another story. Gemara Tosfos and Kedushin brings down a Yerushalmi. Rabbi Yishmael, who's a Tana. He's a Tana. His mother came to the Beis Medrash complaining about her son. My son doesn't honor me properly. So the sages were shocked when you were a Tana doesn't honor his mother. She said, when my son doesn't honor, so they called in Rabbi Yishmael, your mother was there complaining. So Rabbi Yishmael said, well, I want you to hear my side of the story. When I come home from the yeshiva, remember the story Rabbi Toso says? When I come home from yeshiva every day, my mother wants to wash my feet. Now, I find that very difficult. Would you let your mother wash your feet? But since that's what she wants to do, I let her wash my feet. But then she insists on drinking out that bucket of dirty foot water. Yeah. That I won't let her do. And the Chachamim said, if that's what your mother wants you to do, that's what you have to do. You have to let her honor her. That's what the Gemara said. I don't know any of your mothers. Maybe one or two. I have no doubt that when they bathed you as a child, there was never a debate in her mind, okay, what's it going to be tonight? Chamomile tea or filthy bathwater. It's not like somebody, hold me back, somebody. Let me at it. Let me at it. Hold me back. I don't believe that was ever really an issue. So why is the Gemara telling you that? It sounds like almost a ridiculous. It sounds like a ridiculous story. The answer is the Gemara is telling you that when it comes to honoring your parents, take yourself out of the picture. If that's what your father wants, that's what you have to do. If that's what your mother wants, if your mother would say to you, if your mother would say to you, bring me some Dr. Pepper, would you do it? It's the only thing in the world worse than foot water.
23 flavors. Come on.
Dr. Pepper's terrible. White Sox fans drink it. So, you have no self-respect. If you drink Dr. Pepper, you have no self-respect. Would you give Dr. Pepper to your mother? If that's what she wants, that's what you have to give her. That's what you have to give her. You can't even make a shakol on it. Bracha levatola. And you give your mother Dr. and say, now if it was already something like Pepsi, now we're talking. Or Mountain Dew. Do you remember Mountain Dew?
Oh yeah.
I think Mountain Dew, they said, Mountain Dew had more caffeine than Coke.
Flavor was based off of moonshine.
Was it?
Yep.
And do you remember the commercial? Yahoo! Mountain Dew. That was the commercial. Sure, because that guy just had 2 bottles, so he was all pumped from the caffeine. They probably got a guy to do the commercial who just drank 2 bottles. Mountain Dew. Yahoo! Mountain Dew. So what do you call it? So what's the Gemara telling us? The Gemara is telling us when it comes to honoring your parents, it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. Take yourself out of the picture. That's what they want. That's what you have to do. Okay? The red cow that he has is because the Parah-Dox ultimately, even with Rashi's explanation later on, ultimately it doesn't sit with it. Why should a guy becomes tameh? A guy becomes tameh, and then after he becomes tameh, you sprinkle him with the ashes of the red cow. There's only one problem with that. You know what the problem is? Somebody once asked the rabbi, I don't know, in the morning we wash Negovasser. You wash 3 times on each hand. So the guy says, I don't understand. Why do we wash 3 times on each hand? Why do we wash 3 times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What are we doing in the morning when we do that? We're removing what's called ruach ra, right? There's a spirit on our hands that we have to remove. So a guy once asked the rabbi, I think it was Rabbi Orlovsky, he said to him, I don't understand. Why does it have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Why can't it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? So he said to him, that's your only problem here? That's your only problem? That there's some sort of spirit on your hands that you're good with, that you have no problem with. It's only the technique, that's your problem? So over here it's almost the same thing. That somebody who comes in contact with a dead body, which we'll see why that's a problem. Somebody comes in contact with becomes tameh. Tameh you're good with. Tameh you have no problem with. Your only problem is why it's removed with the Parah-Dox. That's your only problem here. That's your only problem. So Shlomo HaMelech is bothered by the paradox. Okay, now there's another here. Take a look again at the pasuk. Zos Chukas HaTorah asher tziva Hashem leimor. Why does it refer to it as this is the law of the Torah? Why does it just go into here's the law of the Parah-Dox? Why is it called the law of the Torah? Number 1. So take a look later on. Look at 3121, which is on page 906. Take a look at page 906. It's 9th line on the page. Page 906, 9th line on the page. This is talking about when the Jewish people come back from the war with Midian. V'yomer Elazar HaKohen el anshe hatzova haboim lamilchama. Elazar says to the men of the war, Zos chukas haTorah asher tziva Hashem. He says again, this is the statute of the law of the Torah. And what does he go on to tell them? Aches hazohov ves hakasef, etc. What does he tell them? When you capture the utensils from the goyim, so then you have to purify them. You have to kasher the utensils. How do you kasher them? Well, If it was used for cooking, you got to put it in boiling water. If it was used for roasting, you got to put it in a roasting fire. That means whatever it is that caused the non-kosher materials to be absorbed into it, you have to use the equal heat to burn it out. Now, does that make sense? Probably nothing in the Torah that makes more logical sense than that.
Yeah.
A perfect logical sense. What expression does the Torah use there? Zos chukas haTorah. What expression does it use by the red cow, which is the thing that probably makes least sense in the entire Torah? Zos chukas haTorah. What's it telling you? Zos chukas haTorah, says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein is teaching us that at the end of the day, whether we understand it or we don't understand it, whether we're completely logical to our puny human minds, or whether it makes absolutely no sense to our puny human minds, that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because Zos Chukas HaTorah, it's a law of the Torah. There's no accident that expression is used by the two polar opposites. It's used where the mitzvah doesn't make any sense to us, and it's used where the mitzvah is perfectly logical to us. That's not why you're doing it. We're doing it because the Torah says, Zos Chukas HaTorah, it's a law of the Torah. And I got news for you. When people sometimes people start getting into Yiddishkeit, they say, I'll do those things which make sense to me. If it makes sense to me, then I'll continue to do it. I got news for you. If it's got to make sense to you, quit now. Quit now, because I'll find you a lot of things that don't make sense. To buy your son, when he's 13 years old, a pair of tefillin that costs $1,200, which he's going to leave on the bus the next day, doesn't make sense. And to go and pay $100 for a yellow fruit, which you could get six for $1.99 if they're lemons. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And if you want to worry about wool and linen, you can't wear things that it doesn't make sense. So if it's got to make sense to you, forget it right now, because they'll find you something that doesn't make sense. And therefore, why are we doing? We're doing it because Zos Chukas HaTorah. Zos Chukas HaTorah. Let's go back to Shlomo HaMelech for a second. When Shlomo HaMelech said, Amarti echkema, listen to his wording. He said, Amarti echkema v'hi rechoka mimeni. I said I'd be wise, and it's distant from me. So very sharp. One of the commentaries said, you know what Shlomo HaMelech was saying? When Moshe Rabbeinu saw the burning bush, what did Moshe Rabbeinu say? He sees the boy, he walks by the burning bush, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, Asurana, I will move away, the era es hamara hazeh, and I'll see this burning bush. I wouldn't use that expression. I would say I will go to it to see it. He says, I'll move away and I'll see it. Shlomo HaMelech is saying that sometimes if we think that we can understand everything and we'll get close to it, sometimes it's not accessible to us. Moshe Rabbeinu sees something and realizes, I'm not going to understand that. Sometimes in life we have to concede that we don't understand it all. We don't understand it all. A 4-year-old cannot understand why a plane stays up in the air. And there's no father who understands why, when you have liquid in a straw and you put your finger on it, why the liquid doesn't fall out. And you're going to be asked that by your kids, and you got to find out. And there's only one answer. Go ask Zeta. That's the answer. Because that's what he told you also. I don't know. And I don't know why planes stay up in the air. Now, they do. If you start explaining jet engines to a 4-year-old or to a Parsha teacher at Ohr Somayach, he's not going to understand how it works. But it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It doesn't mean. Sometimes we have to concede, you know what, I don't understand. I don't have to understand everything. It's like the guy went into the library and said, do you have the book Man, the Master of Women? He said, yes, it's over in the fiction section over there. And we don't have to understand everything. Not everything is clear. Not everything is understood. Amarti echkama, you want to be smart, v'hi rechoka me. Concede that it's different from you, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu may grant you the wisdom to understand it. If you think you're really going to understand it, you must have. If I don't understand it, it can't be. Like many of the physicists and all those who claim they don't believe in God because they don't understand it. Well, then you're not going to understand. If you ever see when you want to appreciate a picture, a painting, what do you do when you want to appreciate a painting? What do? You start moving back. Right? What do you do when you want to appreciate gefilte fish? You move back. Only good at a distance. And even then questionable. What do you do when you want to appreciate a painting? Kind of move back, right? I think you have to cock your head on an angle also. I think that's a halacha. Then you have to look back and then go like that, because otherwise you're not sophisticated. And by the way, if you can wear a beret sideways, then you could actually qualify as a painter. Right, if you wear a beret sideways, otherwise you can't. Somehow that helps you paint, I guess, because if you wear the beret sideways, so it helps people. That's why people tilt their head. Maybe the whole picture's on an angle because it has. I'm not sure, but if you want to, sometimes you got to move back to appreciate what you're really seeing, and that's why in Torah sometimes you have to appreciate what you're seeing. The way you appreciate it is by conceding, I'm not ready for this yet. I have to move back. Then maybe with my humility, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will grant me the siyata d'shmaya to understand. What are you going to ask? Yes,
before we do it? So
it's preferable to know the mitzvah, but it's not a prerequisite. We're supposed to try to understand and penetrate the depth of the mitzvahs, but never assume that we've fathomed the depth of Hashem's wisdom. And by the way, gentlemen, you know that it says in the the Sefer Charedim, I think it was written about 200 years ago. If you would live 1,000 years twice, which is 2,000. But if you live, the terminology is if you live 1,000 years twice, you still wouldn't be able to fathom the depth of even one mitzvah. So we're supposed to understand, try to understand. And there are many mitzvahs that we look at the mitzvah and we find where Rabbi Malevsky used to call what the classic commentaries talk about tamei hamitzvahs, the flavor of the mitzvah. But what we look for is the benefit of the mitzvah. But never confuse the fact that even if we find a benefit, doesn't mean that that's the reason. So if we don't eat pork, what's one of the benefits of not eating pork? There's something, what's it called, trichinosis poisoning? Yeah. Which people get. Did I tell you about my friend the doctor? My friend the doctor told me that there was a girl who developed a parasite in her brain, and she had to have surgery. And after the surgery, the surgeon said to her, "Can I ask you a question? Are you Jewish?" She said, "Yeah, why do you ask?" He says, "Because the parasite that you have comes from pork consumption, and I know that Jews don't eat pork." She says, "Well, I happen to be Jewish, but I'm not religious, and my favorite food is pork, and I eat a lot of it." And as a result of that little musar shvuz, she became a balas tshuva. So there's a benefit. I once noticed, I didn't see this in any of the classic commentaries, but I once noticed, it's obvious that we have a break in our routine every week. We have the regular week, and then you have Shabbos. And Shabbos is the break in the routine, which is a gift. The Gemara says Shabbos is a precious gift. That's clear. But then every half year, we have a break in the yearly routine because we have a holiday for an entire week. We have Pesach, and exactly 6 months later, we have Chukas. This is besides Shavuos or the rabbinic Hanukkah. But by the Torah law, you have Pesach and you have Chukas. They're exactly 6 months apart. And you have a break in the yearly routine. How do you like that? You have a week break. Besides the weekly break, you then have a break in the monthly pattern, but you're having a week break where you get, so Pesach comes, and you get to spend a week with your friends, with your relatives, and then Hashem in His kindness gives you 6 months to recover before you got to do it again. Right? So you see, there's rhyme and reason over here. It didn't happen by accident that way. Not only that, in the non-Jewish world, how many weeks vacation do you get each year? 2 weeks vacation. That's the standard. Look at that. We have 2 weeks, 2-week vacation in the course of the year, what we call a vacation, besides Shabbos. I mean, you make a calculation. There are 50 Shabbosim in the year, and then another 2 weeks Pesach, and now with Hanukkah, we don't work much. We figured out how to get out of that too, and still get the same salary. How do you like that? And if you're a teacher, you don't work at all. So at the end of the day, there's rhyme and reason. So we're supposed to try to, but that doesn't mean it's the only thing. And we never get to the point where we think we figured out that's what the reason of the mitzvah is. Now, there's another idea here. Let's go to Shlomo HaMelech's Parah-Dox for a second. it purifies those who are impure, and it impurifies those who are already pure. What is that all about? What is that all about? What is the Torah trying to communicate with that? And not only that, it's called Zos Chukas Torah. This is the law of the Torah. What has that got to do, or how does that fit with the description? This is the law of the Torah. That's very important, guys. This is very important. What's that?
There will always be impurity.
There will always be impurity until that's true. Until we get the Parah-Dox back, there will always be impurity. But why is it Zos Chuka HaTorah? Something about that Parah-Dox is the law of the Torah. Getting closer. So Moshe Feinstein says that there are certain traits that we have to know. First of all, there are opposite traits. That means what's good for you isn't necessarily good for somebody else. One person's approach to learning Torah is he likes the penetrating depth. Somebody else likes more encyclopedic knowledge. One person moves in the direction of doing chesed. You have another people who davens with intensity. If you try to daven with too much intensity, you'll space out. For somebody else, his way of serving God and your way of serving God are not, what's right for him isn't necessarily right for you. It's a mistake people make, is guys try to copy each other. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person. And therefore a person has to know, you may try to fit the square into the round hole because the other guy's doing it that way. Yeah, but with his personality and his temperament, that's a better way of serving Hashem. Some people gravitate towards the Litvisha approach. Some people gravitate towards the Hasidisha approach. Each one has to know his personality. And not only that, sometimes it could actually work against you. Trying to do something somebody else is doing. You have somebody who, let's say, spends hours with intense Torah learning. If you try to spend hours with intense Torah learning, it may actually make you tense and nervous. And that's not a way of serving Hashem. For another person, it means going out and fundraising. Example: if you would try to fundraise, you cry. If I fundraise, I would cry if I fundraise. If a guy would slam a door in my face, I'd just break down crying. Another guy gets hay. That just makes the challenge more fun. I've spoken to fundraisers. Some guys just love it. I just love it. I would fundraise. I would just absolutely break down and cry. So each person has to know what your abilities are. What's good for him may be exactly the opposite for you. I've seen this in the yeshiva world in general, where guys try to imitate each other. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. More than that, says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, the Parah-Dox that tells the Zos Chukas Torah. Listen carefully. It teaches you. Let's take humility, for example. Are we supposed to try to be as humble as possible? We're supposed to. Are we supposed to pursue honor? No, we're supposed to flee from it. What about honoring other people? We're supposed to do that. We're supposed to honor. What about generosity? Are we supposed to be generous with ourselves? We're supposed to live with limitation. When a guest comes into your house, what do? Put it out there. When it comes to spending money on ourselves, we should be frugal. But, by the way, somebody once said there's nothing as good as having an ancestor who was frugal. We're supposed to, when it comes to ourselves, we're supposed to be frugal. But when we spend on other people, give tzedakah or spend money on tefillin or whatever is spending to serve God, then we're supposed to be generous. That means we have to turn it on and turn it off. We have to be able to turn it on and turn it off. And that's what impurifies one person is pure for somebody else. It purifies him. Somebody who shouldn't be spending money on himself, that is an impurification. That impurifies him. But to go spend money on somebody else, that's a good thing. To pursue honor for ourselves, that's tuma. But to honor other people, respect other people, and show other people respect, that's already tahara, that's purification. And therefore, that's the Parah-Dox what Moshe Feinstein says, that's the Parah-Dox of the Parah-Dox. Right? A very important, and that's why it's called Chukas Torah, because it runs through the entire Torah. It runs through the entire. Are we supposed to be rigid? No, we should hold ourselves to an exacting standard. We should hold ourselves to an exacting standard, not hold other people to an exacting standard. We should cut other people a lot of slack. If we cut it, we usually do it the other way, by the way. We cut ourselves, I cut myself a lot of slack, not with other people. We're supposed to do exactly the opposite. I have to hold myself to an exacting standard. Other people, I have to cut themselves slack. You have to cut them slack. It's not, and therefore, Moshe Feinstein says that's why it's Zos Chukas Torah. This is an underlying principle throughout the entire Torah. Okay, one more point. What's the idea? If you notice look at the last words of the previous parsha. We'll end with this, but just look at the last words of the previous parsha. So it's talking about the separating the tithes. The Levim have to separate tithes. In other words, there's a kickback here for the Kohanim. You give 10% to the Levim, and the Levim have to give 10% to the Kohanim. And the Torah describes the various gives. And then the Torah says that at a certain point, if you didn't separate it and it's got a status that it's not allowed to be eaten, it says, "Es kodshe b'nei Yisrael lo sechalalu v'lo samusu." Do not desecrate it, and you won't die. Then the very next line is Zos Chukas Torah. This is the statute of the Torah. What's the connection to the previous parsha? It ended with telling us you won't die. Then it talks about the statute of this is the law of the Torah. What happened to Dovid HaMelech, gentlemen? What happened to Dovid HaMelech? Didn't he ask God when he was going to die? Dovid HaMelech asked God what day is he going to die? And finally God said you're going to die on a Shabbos. And so what did Dovid HaMelech do? He wouldn't tell him which Shabbos, which day. He said you're going to die, I'll tell you this will be on Shabbos. And what did Dovid HaMelech do all Shabbos in order to avoid dying? He learned Torah. Angel of death can't get at you when you're learning Torah. And we find this in the Gemara. Rabbi Bar Nachmani learned Torah. The angel of death couldn't get at him. And Rav Chizda learned Torah. The angel of death couldn't get at him either. Until he stopped Torah, until he created the distraction like he did by Dovid HaMelech. That's what's alluded to here. V'lo samusi, you won't die. You don't want to die? Learn Torah, you won't die. That's the only protection. Theoretically, if a person would learn Torah non-stop, he would be able to die. That's the power of Torah. I was about 11 years old, I think, and I told my father I want to get life insurance. So my father said to me, why? Why? Now, I wasn't the sharpest knife in the kitchen. And I knew that this is probably wrong, but I just said, well, I want to get life insurance. He said, why? I said, because I don't want to die. Because I thought life insurance ensures that you don't die. That's what the words say. So he explained it to me. By the time I was about 27, I understood the concept. Took a while. I still don't know how the stock market works. In any event, that's it. We'll continue tomorrow with Hashem.
Why did Dovid HaMelech ask that question? If he was speaking to Hashem, did he not know that he got sent to it?
Apparently not. That's a medrash.